Ardo Cal, Emily Rand, and Tyler Erzberger with you here on ESPN Esports. We are talking about the last 24 hours as it pertains to NEOM, a futuristic utopian tourist city that is being built in Saudi Arabia, and its partnerships and sponsorships with the LEC and Blast Pro Series. We will focus specifically on the LEC as the Blast Pro Series partnership is still ongoing. In the last 24 hours, the LEC announced a partnership with NEOM, saying that it will be a sponsor for the summer split as a main sponsor. And this was met with outcry on social media, in particular from forward-facing talent in the LEC and players and community members across League of Legends globally. This led to the LEC and League of Legends rescinding that sponsorship with NEOM, including a comment from Alberto Guerrero, who is the director of esports and EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. As a company and as a league, we know that it's important to recognize when we make mistakes and quickly work to correct them. After further reflection, while we remain steadfastly committed to all of our players and fans worldwide, including those living in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, the LEC has ended its partnership with NEOM effective immediately. In an effort to expand our esports ecosystem, we moved too quickly to cement this partnership and caused rifts in the very community we seek to grow. While we missed our own expectations in this instance, we're committed to re-examining our internal structures to ensure this doesn't happen again. Now, it's important to note that one of the reasons that there was so much outcry was because many of the casters, forward-facing talent, community members believe or felt strongly about Saudi Arabia's history with human rights, as well as its treatment of the LGBTQ community. And the LEC is very outwardly supportive of the community, as evidenced by their avatar on Twitter as one such example. So there's a lot to unpack here from the business side as well. Let's first talk about the personality side of it, Emily. What is it about the LEC community? We saw a lopsided amount of support from the LEC community, or outcry, I should say, and support of those people speaking out, as opposed to the Blast Pro Series CSGO side. What is it about the League of Legends community in particular where the courage was found and the risk was taken to possibly put their careers at risk to speak so outwardly about this topic?
I mean, I think so to like go back to something that you just mentioned with the LEC specifically and the avatar and stuff like that. I mean, we see brands like as a whole, as an umbrella brand, do this all the time. But I think the most important thing with the LEC specifically is the distinction between the brand itself, which honestly, like the lines blur between people in the LEC, like the actual broadcast talent, and the LEC brand. The LEC brand does not equal the LEC broadcast talent. And that's why I actually want to make that distinction, because I think what the broadcast talent did in setting the standard with like an immediate response that put their jobs on the line is actually incredibly brave. And I want to make that distinction because I feel like one of the selling points in a lot of brands actually, but specifically the LEC, because they're marketed as like a family, right? Like they're marketed as like very open, very welcoming. And every single interaction I've had with people from that broadcast, like the individuals, backs that up. They're all really amazing people. Like they're all awesome people. And I think their bravery and courage here is actually insane. I think that is what made the difference. But I want to make that distinction that like LEC is not that. Like I think more than anything else, we should be praising the actual individual talent that immediately came out and spoke out, because what that did was it opened the floodgates for everyone else at Riot to be able to speak out if they disagreed with this. And the overwhelming majority of people did have an issue with this partnership. Whenever that happens, I think it's always kind of a really cool like watershed moment as you see like things begin to snowball. But it really did start with this very like beloved LEC broadcast team that has, you know, like the LEC or like Riot Games as a brand has marketed them as a family, which you can like disagree with or agree with that it's a good marketing strategy. But I feel like here we really saw them standing up for each other and what they believed in. And it allowed other people within Riot, which is a company that's received a lot of criticism for something like this, to feel comfortable enough to speak out against this on their own as well.
Speaking of that criticism, Tyler, let's now talk about LEC as a brand. What does this mean in terms of their reputation, their standing with League of Legends fans and the community? Is their reputation tarnished? Did they act fast enough? What does this all mean for the LEC?
I don't think it's tarnished. I think for the vast majority, they will see this as a victory. They will see this as the LEC brand doing the right thing by going along with their casters and their front-facing talent and saying, this was our mistake, our bad. We listened to the fans. We changed our opinion. But I do want to see, I do wholeheartedly agree with Emily here, where I hope the fans see that the people, champion the faces, champion the people like Frescare and Medic and all these people who stepped up and were so adamant about this with their jobs on the line. At the end of the day, the LEC, the brand, the company is going to do what makes the most financial sense. This is not the first time they've dealt with sponsorship with, some not a perfect track record. It's not going to be the last. The only reason why this switched so fast because the entire community, their front-facing talent, were brave enough to push this forward and change things in an instant, essentially. Where I want people to see that we should be talking about how great the cast is of characters on the LEC brand who make the brand great. And at the end of the day, it really is hard to separate the two because they're so ingrained with each other. The LEC brand is because of what the characters on screen make of it, right? They're kind of interchangeable. But I want people to champion the people who are loud and who were so against this so quickly. Don't champion the brand, champion the people who made this stuff happen. Because at the end of the day, they did this. The LEC brand did this, right? Did this because of the backlash. If there was no backlash, if people were quiet about it, it's not like these kind of decisions, these kind of I would presume multi-million-dollar, main sponsor title advertisements. These aren't quickly made. This isn't an oopsie that this happens in a 30-second check. Like this had to be thought out. This had to be a long discussion. So all this came down because of the people who should be championed after this, which is like Frescare and the cast and people who put their jobs in line to say this is not right and they don't believe that this fits with what they put out as a product. So please, people, champion the people, champion them. They're what makes the LEC great. It makes their brand great. So don't mix up the two. A brand will always do what's best for business. The people were the ones who stepped out and should really be applauded for what they did.
You're absolutely right in that. For those type of positions that are extremely difficult to obtain in the first place, and in many cases the amount of years and effort that it takes to get into those lucrative positions, for them to be willing to put it on the line for one tweet and one public opinion speaks volumes about how strongly they felt about the topic in the first place. So it definitely is to be commended that not only presumably we haven't heard anything publicly, but you could surmise that they will be keeping their jobs, and not only that, change was made. So this is a big step forward, and yes, the talent and those people that spoke their opinions are definitely to be commended here. I do want to read a tweet from, if you saw me typing, is because I wanted to find Carlos Ocelot's tweet here, because he also made a good point from the other side of things and how difficult this would have been to reverse this decision in a matter of hours, giving praise to the LEC. He said, this will be after the LEC posted 15 hours ago at the time we record this, their update that they were severing ties with the NEOM sponsorship. His response to that was, quote, "This will be taken lightly, but I urge everybody to understand how hard it is to do this, let alone do it within 24 hours. It is an honor to be on this league." So there is support for the decision to rescind the partnership, even if there was initial outcry about the partnership itself with the LEC. There are people that are supporting, even those that are in business with the LEC, such as Carlos. The last thing I want to mention on this video and pose this question to both of you is, what does this mean for the future of League of Legends and esports in general in Saudi Arabia? We saw a tournament happen in Saudi Arabia that was in conjunction with the Saudi Arabian government that Riot put on, called the Nexus, that happened this past December. We are seeing multiple efforts for esports to grow. And in fact, as part of the partnership with Blast Pro Series, they are helping make an esports hub, make NEOM an esports hub in the Middle East. So what do you think this last 24 hours will mean for esports in general in Saudi Arabia? Because I think we can all agree that the people of Saudi Arabia, esports fans, competitors, etc., they should not be affected by this. They shouldn't be stricken from the record because of what happened in the last 24 hours. Emily, let's start with you on this one.
I mean, I think that it's like whenever something is actually rescinded like this, I think the speed at which it was done is pretty remarkable, in that I hope that people don't just kind of like forget that this happened. And the fact that it was turned around so quickly is probably an indicator that this might stick around. I'm not sure how it's going to affect esports going forward, because I think, like, to Tyler's point, and like I think ultimately the worst this reflects on is kind of like Riot Central, right? Who's organizing these partnerships. Hopefully more eyes will be on them in terms of like who they're working with to plan their tournaments, not even necessarily like where they're holding their events. Although I know I've seen people speak out like outside of esports, like with, for example, K-pop concerts is the big thing that comes to mind immediately. I think this may like ultimately, like the snowball effect we were talking about with casters speaking out, and then it made other people within Riot Central, it made other people on social media feel a lot more comfortable speaking out themselves because they felt like they were backed up, right? We could see that happen similarly in future cases. I think ultimately that will probably be the true test of like how remarkable this moment was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, again, wholeheartedly agree. I just want, again, as we were talking about earlier, just as the LEC brand should not be, championed over the people who make that brand great, I think it's very similar with the people of Saudi Arabia, correct? Like, just because of some things that are wrong or perceived to be wrong, or NEOM or a brand that you don't necessarily agree with, that doesn't mean that people, the kids out there, the teenagers who love League of Legends, should be barred from competing at a high level or wanting to love a game just as similarly as kids in North America or Europe or Asia or Australia or wherever. At the end of the day, a lot, like when you're a teenager, teenagers love the same things. They love video games, they love Netflix, they love Snapchat and TikTok. Like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, really. A lot of the themes are exactly the same from place to place to place. There's bad brands that everywhere, in every country, in every region. So I really hope that this doesn't become a thing where people see as like, no Saudi Arabia tournaments. We don't need the tournaments here. Bar from they shouldn't be even playing League of Legends. Like, I really do hope that I know Riot does have a focus on the Middle East region when it comes to Valorant and League of Legends, and I do hope they continue growing that, because there is talent out there, and we've seen it in other games where Middle Eastern talent has risen over the last few years. And I do hope that
FIFA's a great example.
FIFA with Tekken, with Arlenach, so many great young talents are coming out of that region, and I do think that League of Legends has a lot to offer along with Valorant. So I do hope Riot continues investing in that scene. I just think this is a wake-up call for them as a brand and as a company as a whole. And I'm very proud of the people on the LEC forward-facing cast who came out and put their jobs in line to make a change. And that's what happened. And I hope that's what we remember from this incident, where when they didn't have to do that, they could have stayed quiet. They could have just kept their jobs. And as you said, it takes years and years and years. And everyone who's on that cast busted their butt for years to have that one opportunity to get that full-time job where they can sustain themselves on esports. And we can all say the very same thing as part of ESPN Esports. And to put your livelihood on the line like that, that's what should be remembered. And I just want to again say, like, kudos to them. That was a really big thing to do, and it's really, at the end of the day, that's what should be championed over anything else from this incident.
Continued coverage of this story is available at espn.com/esports.